Hi, you guys. I thought I'd take a couple minutes and address a big question that has been coming up in our community related to sidereal and true sidereal astrology or human design charts versus tropical astrology and traditional human design charts. So let's talk about what does this mean and what does this mean for you. So the first thing I wanted to say, traditional astrology does not take into account some of the more recent planetary shifts. And so sidereal astrology and true sidereal astrology just base the calculation of planetary positions on a little bit of a different information. This may or may not change your chart significantly. Some of you might feel like, wow, I really relate to this sidereal chart. Some of you might feel like you really relate to your tropical chart. I want to, before we break down all of this, I want to bring us back to a basic premise of human design. And it's a premise that I really, this is probably different in the way that I teach compared to how other teachers teach. And I want you to really get this piece because it's going to enhance your understanding of human design and how you can use it as a tool to really support your clients. So the first thing that I want to say is, or the first thing I want to remind you of, is we all have all the chart. There is a lot of conversation in the human design community about definition making the whole chart everything that it is, and definition being the self, and the white parts of the chart, the openness being the not self. You all know, if you've studied with me long enough, that I don't think there is such a thing as a not self. It's all self. And the difference is you get to explore the archetypes in the chart differently depending on whether you're open or defined. But no matter what, you're going to explore all of the archetypes in the chart over the course of your life. You're never going to be able to hide from the gate 22 or the gate 39 or the gate 51 or whatever, because it's all part of us, all part of our collective story. In the very beginning of human design, when Ra first taught human design, he didn't teach type. Type came much later. Type came as a way, I think, of helping us codify more clearly the configuration of the throat and the sacral and how that influenced or described the weighting process. Now, I'm saying that way very carefully because I think there's a mythology in the way in which we talk about human design where we think that there are certain types that don't have to weight. Everyone has weighting as part of their design, even manifestors. It's the weighting that gives us the opportunity to calibrate our emotional frequency so that we're in alignment with creating what we really want. It allows us to be in the flow of divine timing, and it lets us know, it gives us the signal, and this is where type is kind of cool. It gives us the signal that helps us identify when the timing is right. But as some of you may know, type is just one part of the chart. There are other parts of the chart that are going to feed into all of the dynamics that define how you weight. And ultimately, your type in your chart, more than anything, is teaching you what's your best strategy for weighting and what's your best strategy for knowing that inner sense of when the timing is right to take action. That's part one. Okay, so we all have to wait. We're all configured to wait in a unique way. And you can't sew it up with one succinct thing like, oh, type. Okay, because you can have a very speedy, fast, powerful type and have a lot of other factors in the chart that give you a lot of pieces about waiting, or your individual unique life path itself might have a lot of waiting involved in it. Let's say, for example, you're completely mutative by design. You may have a lot of waiting as part of your life path because you're here to change things, and so the world has to be ready for you, and you might find that the world doesn't get ready for you until you're like in your 50s or 60s. So every story and every chart has a unique journey, and it's difficult to codify the human experience in such a rigid formulaic way that we say, oh, you're this type, so you have this, or you have this gate, and that means that. We are, as practitioners, giving people information to support them on a journey of self-exploration. We don't have the answers for our clients. We are laying out the possibilities for our clients. We are supporting our clients in discovering ways in which they can feel seen and validated. We are discovering ways in which we can support our clients in giving themselves permission to trust themselves, to love themselves, to stand in their value. And human design itself, from the very, very beginning, if you go back to Ra's original material, is about an experiment. It's about, through the experimentation and exploration of the archetypes of the human story, you get to discover who you are for yourself. You get to define for yourself. That's the gate 13 on the G Center. Regardless of whether you have it defined or open, we each get to define for ourselves who are we and who are we not, and who are we now compared to who we used to be, and who are we going to become. And those stories about our identity are fluid and dynamic and contain every element of the chart. So yes, I think this conversation about traditional astrology, sidereal astrology, true sidereal astrology is all very interesting. And it also is, in a way, a distraction from the main point of human design. And that main point of human design is not, what am I in this chart? To a certain degree, it's about, who am I in my life? Given the entire basket, if you will, of all of the archetypes that are parts of the human story, the types, the profiles, the centers, the gates, the channels, the circuitry, given all of those parts of the human story, and given the fact that you actually have all of those parts of the human story, that this experiment of one, if you will, to quote Marianne Winiger, this experiment of one is yours. It's personal, and it's a personal journey, and there's no real right or wrong. So we could say, yeah, tropical, yeah, sidereal, yeah, true sidereal, whatever. The real thing is, what do you relate to? And if we find in our community that some of us relate more to sidereal or true sidereal, or some of us relate more to traditional astrology, it doesn't matter. None of them are right or wrong. It's about, each of us has a personal trajectory. And that trajectory is about finding for ourselves, who are we? What do we resonate with? What feels right and aligned for us? And it doesn't invalidate the system. It doesn't invalidate the system, especially if you embrace the idea that we have it all. We are it all. And we experience it all through our own experience and through our relationships with others. And those places where we're in the flow of the cosmic plan and dancing in the cosmic entanglements that are our lives, those places teach us through reflection, through responding, through invitation, through recognition, through creating, through alignment. Those places teach us more deeply who we are and who we're not. So if you run into the sidereal chart or the true sidereal chart and you're like, I really relate to this, awesome. Go play with it. Go experiment with it. If you look at it and you're like, I don't know, there's some elements of this that I can relate to that are maybe part of my soul theme, but not really, I will tell you that I personally don't relate to my sidereal chart at all. I'm a generator with an undefined throat in sidereal astrology. Or I don't know, I have to go back and look at it. I remember looking at it a while ago thinking, I don't relate to this at all. But, this is also the same. We had the same kind of conversation in our community a couple years ago about sleep charts and lunar charts. That was the whole other thing. And conscious and unconscious. Over the course of my 22 years in this community, there have always been little times when we've had little shoots and branches and side notes and explorations. And there's nothing invalid about any of those explorations. What's valid is what feels right for you. And I want to let you know, for those of you who are being concerned about, does this invalidate everything I've just studied? It doesn't. The way I teach you to do human design is to approach it as a storytelling tool, to approach it as a tool that supports people in discovering for themselves through their own experiment what's right and what's not. And if you relate to this thing over here and your whole body starts to hum with it and you're like, yeah, this is it, then do it. And if you need to, it doesn't change the fact that you understand the mechanics of chart interpretation. If you want to interpret sidereal charts versus traditional charts, do that, but you still understand the mechanics of how the chart works. If you want to stick with the old stuff, the stuff you learned with me, do that. You still understand the mechanics of chart reading. And that's what you have. That's what you can hold on to. That's what you are able to give people. And you are able to use your mechanical ability to look at a chart and understand it and give people a story outline that they get to fill out for themselves through their own experimentation. So don't get too hung up on right or wrong. Don't get too hung up on which is correct or not. It's kind of all correct. And you have all of it. We have all of it. And we're on this grand exploration together. And ultimately, what it's really about is teaching you, A, who are you? Who do you define yourself to be? And what's your best way of knowing yourself well enough that you understand your unique interface with the cosmic plan? I hope that helps. I hope that clears some stuff up. Go check it out. Go see if you relate to it or not. I mean, I'm all about experimenting and then see what works for you or not. You still have the mechanics of chart reading under your belt. And nothing about that has changed. All right. Bye.